They literally call, they book over the phone, and everything else is history. Just show of hands, how many of us are wedding photographers? How many of us want to be wedding photographers? I love it. I think I have the best job in the world. As I learned to make natural and artificial light work for me, my photos became more consistent. And then what happened was my brand became more recognizable. People think that when you are light and airy, or your photos are more bright, that you have to shoot natural light. That is not true. You can use a flash, you can bump up your exposure, and you can also get a bright image. There is no way in the world, if you want to be a photographer, if you want to shoot weddings, babies, maternity, sometimes we're not always outside. So we have to learn how to use both, whether it be our flash or natural light. So for me, 3 things was all it took. I needed to learn light and take control of it. I also needed to take control of my environment. I needed to practice. That's one thing we don't do enough. We need to practice. And I needed to purchase a lens with a wider aperture, more like 2.8. Pretty much 2.8 or 3.5 is my sweet spot now. When I first started shooting, it was more 4.5, 5.0, 5.6, but that didn't give me the look of my images that I wanted. I wanted that clean, bright, creamy background type of image, so I had to get lenses that had a wider aperture. As I started to understand that light was working in my photos with my lens choice, I became more confident. So what happened? To achieve the light and airy look, you needed to find the light. You can create it with the flash, but it cannot be captured in natural light alone. It can be if you're outside and you have a bright sunny day or an overcast day, but there are some times when you need to use a flash. You also need to properly expose for the light. So when we're shooting in auto all the time, we're really doing our images an injustice. We need to throw our camera in manual, and we need to be able to control our f-stop. And you also need to communicate with your clients and pose them correctly, because they don't know what to do. So for me, if I'm outside, I always want to have my subjects back to the sun. So the sun is in front of me, because then I'm backlighting them. And then what's happening is I'm getting a nice overall bright image. You also need to know that you need to take only a few photos. How many of us just click, 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 click with our camera, and we're spraying and praying, and we're taking so many images? What we're doing is we're doing an injustice for ourselves. We're spraying and praying. We want to be more intentional with what we shoot, and we want to get it right in camera. So for me, what do I consider to be my ideal light for photos? I love natural light. Beautiful. Overcast light. Backlight. Backlight is, again, where the light is behind my subject. Bounce light from a sidewalk. Usually I try to find, even if it's not a sidewalk, just a light-colored street. The golden hour. How many of us shoot at the golden hour? I absolutely love it. It's like buttery, creamy. I can't even explain how much I love golden hour. And then window light. You have your subject near the window. And also artificial light from a flash. Like, we think that we can't use a flash, and we absolutely can use our speed light if we bump up the exposure. But you need to remember to stay consistent. So no matter what light source you're using, whether it's indoors or outdoors, you want to stay consistent. So if you look at my photos, and I'm actually going to come over here. No matter whether I'm indoors or outdoors, my photos are consistent with the lighting. And this is because I want my brand or my aesthetic to be pleasing, to be bright, to be overall evenly lit. So I'm indoors here. I'm outdoors. I really don't expose for shadows. I'm sorry. I don't expose for the highlights. I expose for shadows. So that means that overall, everything is lit, clean, bright, even. Again, I'm inside. So what I'm doing here is I'm using my flash. I'm outside. And once you find a really good spot, you can leave your clients there. So if you find that you have a nice light area in the front that you can diffuse and bounce that light off of, just leave your clients there. You could be shooting your bride and groom and just add your couple, like the bridal party in, or if you're shooting the mom and dad for a family session, just add the kids in. You don't have to move your subjects all over to get 30,000 different looks. You can keep them where they are, and then just add people in or take people away. So that's usually what I do. If I find the light is good, and I find it's being bounced up properly, and everything is cleanly lit, I just leave them there. Indoor. For this, I'm using 3 flashes. I have one on camera, and I'm using my throw card, which is the white little bounce card that we pull up. I have one off to the right and one off to the left, and it's up by the DJ booth. So I've lit my couple 3 different ways. Again, before I even started to take this image or think about this image, I metered for the shadows. So for me, that's in here. It's the darkest part of my subject. Outdoor. I have everybody here backlit. This is the same location. I didn't move anybody. I just did my couple, bridal party. Everybody's in the same location. But if you're moving around them, or you're zooming in or you're zooming out, you're getting 3 different looks. Same thing, backlighting. Like, backlighting is my jam. I love it. If I find the light and it just comes right behind my subjects and it's illuminating their hair, and I mean, it's bouncing off of the dress, the flowers, there's beautiful bokeh in the background. Bokeh's the little balls of light. If I see that I have a really good, evenly lit image in the front, and it's backlighting them beautifully, I'm just gonna leave them there. So again, they're all in the same spot. The only thing I did was I just moved around them. Again, we're indoors, and I'm using flash. There's nothing wrong with using flash. As long as my images consistently look the same, whether I'm indoors or outdoors, I will use my flash all day long. Especially here in New Jersey or New York. How many of us are from this area? We have rain all the time, right? Like, it's constantly raining. There's not times when say I have a tented wedding. We're underneath a tent. We don't have natural light because it's been pouring. We've had so many hurricanes. So learning how to use your flash correctly is really what's going to keep you consistent whether you're indoors or outdoors. Here I'm using natural light. I really didn't have any control over where the couple was walking out of because they're coming out of their ceremony. But what we did was we just went off to the side a little bit because it was 3 o'clock harsh sun. So if we went over there, they would have been a complete hot spot. So we just moved ourselves. And then we're indoors. So with these bouquets, I actually used window light, which illuminated them from the back. But I used my flash in the front. There's nothing wrong, and I'm going to say it 100 times over. You do not have to be a natural light wedding photographer to get light and airy, bright, and clean looking photos. You can use your flash. You can use it on camera, you can use it off camera, or you can use both. Here's a mixture of indoors and outdoors. And by the way, this is my style. I'm consistent with it. I don't change. I think the biggest issue I had when I first started shooting weddings, or even shooting portraits, is I wasn't consistent with my style. So I'd take a picture and I'd get it into Lightroom or Photoshop, and that one would be dark, or this one would have shadows, or this one would be contrasty, or this one would have too much saturation. And I was never consistent with the way I was editing, and it drove me crazy. And really, all it was is that I really didn't know how to work my light correctly. Because once you are consistent with the way you're lighting your subjects, your photos become more consistent. So here I'm indoors and outdoors. We're outdoor here, outdoor, we're indoor. I didn't have to use flash here because I actually had the doors open on the sides and light was just pouring in. And then actually, these are under an overhang, and then this is in front of it. So I noticed when we were under it, it cast a big shadow over my subject. I simply just asked her to move. That's the one thing that a lot of people are afraid of. We're afraid to talk to our clients, right? We're afraid to communicate anything to them because then they think that we don't know what we're doing. That's wrong. If we tell them, hey, can you move here? Or can you move there? Or can you do this? They appreciate it because they know that we're trying to produce the best image possible for them. So literally, this sucked because we had a whole flower thing set up over there and we had to move it. But I mean, that's just the way things happen to be when you're trying to be consistent with your light. So all of these images were all clean, bright, evenly lit. So here's how we officially figure out how. So whether you're indoor or outdoor, your lens choice is super important. How many of us are shooting with prime lenses? How many of us don't know what prime lenses are? So primes are your 35, your 50, your 85, your 105. That's when your glass is fixed. That's when our lenses are they're doing the least amount of work because the glass is fixed. When you start shooting with prime lenses, you are going to see an absolute huge difference in the way your images look. Now don't get me wrong, I still use the 24-70. I need it for a bridal party or family pictures. But for the most part, I'm with my 35, my 50, my 85, my 105. And then opening up to a wider aperture. So this was difficult for me because shooting at 2.8 was hard at first. My images were blurry. What I learned to do was mount my arms, take a breath, take a shot. I got a more consistent, non-blurry image. Once you're able to control your f-stop, which means you should be shooting in manual, you're going to completely see how bright your images start to become. And then also starting at about a 200 ISO and then working your way up from there. Do not be afraid to push your ISO. We can push them. We have Nikon cameras, or Nikon, as the guys backstage say. We have cameras that we can push our ISO up as high as we want. Sometimes I shoot 1,000 ISO, no flash, and I'm not even going to say that it bothers. There's no noise in my pictures. They are beautiful. I get them into Lightroom. They're as clear as can be. So I always start a low ISO, and then I work my way up from there. Shooting in full manual mode, or aperture priority. How many of us are still in auto? Which there's no shame in that. Try and put your camera in aperture priority. If you really like the look that it's giving you, push it a step further and go into manual. And then here's the biggest that has changed the look of my images the most. Shooting in Kelvin and not auto white balance. How many of us shoot in Kelvin? If you are not shooting in Kelvin, you should be. You absolutely should be, because if you walk into a dark room or a dark area and your ambient light is yellow or orange, you can trick your camera to get it to be a normal color. You can cool things down, warm things up. Once you master Kelvin, besides having the perfect lens and the perfect light, your Kelvin is going to make a ton of difference. And then using exposure compensation. So we have a little button on the front of our cameras. It's right in the front right. Does anyone ever play with that button? It's exposure compensation. If you dial up, you're making your image brighter. If you dial down, you're making your image darker. So playing with your exposure compensation on your Nikon camera, I always push mine up about 1/3 of a stop. That automatically is going to give you a bright image. And then exposing for the shadows and not the highlights. I blow my whites out, I will say that all day, every day. I could care less about clouds in the sky. I don't care if the skies are blue. I expose for shadows. I do not care about highlights. My clients do not care about highlights. My couples do not care about highlights. If it's important to you, please meter for it. But for me, I expose for my shadows, which means I am picking the darkest part of my client or my subject, and then I'm shooting from there. And then what light should we be looking for? Outdoors, it's natural light. Backlighting is best. The sun is to our subjects back and in front of us. A white sidewalk, near a white wall, by a window, in open shade. When you have overcast, this is the Las Vegas desert. I was speaking at WPPI for Nikon in February. Shooting in the desert is amazing because everywhere you look, it's overcast light. And we know with overcast light, we can turn our subjects any way we want, and they're completely evenly lit. So when you have an overcast day, and it's your wedding or it's your maternity session, it's your couple, do not cancel it. Go out there and shoot in that light. It is amazing light. And if you really look at it, it backlights your clients too. But perfect. So how can I continue to grow my craft? This was hard for me because I would contact photographers who I love their style, who were shooting the style that I wanted my images to look like, and no one was really back 10 years ago, no one was very responsive. People didn't want to give you their secrets or tell you how they did things. And at the time, there wasn't Facebook and there wasn't Instagram. So we didn't have the luxuries that we had. There wasn't Nikon stages with photographers from all the world giving you tips and tricks. But if you contact photographers in your local area, find a bright, light, clean, light and airy photographer, offer to assist them, offer a third shoot, join Facebook groups, attend workshops like this. I mean, you get to learn for free, right? Practice shooting. This is something we never do. Why? Because we're too busy, right? I'm in the middle. I'm at the tail end of my wedding season, and I'm so busy. Like, I don't know whether I'm coming or going. But sometimes we need to take that time. If we want to master a skill, we have to practice it. You cannot buy a camera and then think tomorrow it's going to get you $10,000 weddings. You have to practice. Practice on your children. Practice on your pets. Offer free shoots on Instagram. Offer free shoots on Facebook. People will love you for it. Follow people you admire. As I said, practice on everyone. Listen to webinars. Connect with local wedding vendors. Do styled shoots. Does anyone know what a styled shoot is? Does anyone do them? Do them. Set up your own shoot and practice. Practice on a sunny day. Practice in overcast light. Practice on a cloudy day. Practice at 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a harsh, sunny day. Because then you have total control over how your images are going to look, and then you can practice too. You can practice with that lens you never use. You can say, hey, I'm going to be daring today, and I'm going to put my camera in 1.4. And then you get to see how your images are going to look. Don't spray and pray. Make sure you shoot with intention. Try and shoot film. How many of us shoot film? I do. Try and shoot film because then you'll really be able to read the light. And then dive a little deeper, like I said before, and shoot in Kelvin and not auto white balance. I didn't realize I had so many notes. Like, I have too many notes. I'm not even going to look at them anymore. When I first started shooting weddings, I legit made $300. I'm not even going to sugarcoat that. I didn't make what I wanted to make, and I was upset about it. What was hindering me was that I was not consistent with my style. Once I learned that I like that brighter image, I like a cleaner image, I like a light and airy style, I worked my butt off to get it. 10 years later, I'm asking $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 per wedding, and I'm getting it without anyone blinking their eyes. And it's because I've pushed myself to be consistent. I have tried and I have failed, and I have used flash, and I have given a harsh image, and I have figured out how to use it in manual, and I have taken it outside, and I have shot in harsh sun and backlight sun and overcast light. Practice is what is going to make your images super duper stand out. And once you begin to stand out in your market, then you're going to be able to command those prices that you want. I always try to leave everyone with a quote. I'm sorry I started out over there. I couldn't see everything. That's why I came over here. My mom, who recently passed away, she used to tell me it's better to have something and not need it than need it and not have it. This is for everything in our life. This is for our photography business. This is for the clients that we want to book. This is for how we shoot. We want to learn everything that we do. We have to know how to do it. So if you're at a wedding like I am all the time and it just downpours, now we have to go inside the ugly church or the ugly reception hall or the ugly venue. I have to know how to shoot that and still deliver the images that my clients are used to. So get out there, practice. I'm going to hang out for a little bit, but I still have some time. I'm so excited. When Nikon asked me to speak about light and airy weddings, I'm like, nobody wants to hear about that because everybody shoots like that editorial style or traditional style. But the reality of it is, especially here on the East Coast, there's a huge market for it. Couples it doesn't matter, same-sex couples, different, they want that. They want that film look. They want that blurred background. They want the bokeh, pretty bokeh. They want backlighting. They could care less about the clouds in the sky. Or if they see the steeple on the church, they don't care about that stuff. They want to remember their moment, how much they loved each other. And for me, if you hopped on my Instagram, you'd see I consistently tell a love story through light. And it doesn't matter whether it's artificial or natural. I have a group, so it's in my bag. I shoot with my D4 mainly. My second one is my 750. If you guys are not shooting in full frame, try it. Rent a camera. Having a full frame camera is really going to make your images so much better. Try and get our Nikon glass. I know we have other brands we can use, but when you're using the same brand as your camera, it's usually better. Speed lights are from Nikon as well. I always tell everyone, don't be afraid to do something different. So if you know you want to change your style, change it. Don't be apologetic to anybody. If you go through your Instagram or you go through your Facebook and your images are starting to not match, delete the old ones. Start fresh. Because everything that we do going forward is going to dictate how our companies are going to run. So I had to do a whole rebrand of my business. I had to get rid of all those images that were inconsistent, and now I post everything that is consistent. So I have a minute. I'm so sorry I started out over there and I couldn't see everything, but if you missed what I said in the beginning, do you have any questions about it? Because I know I kind of went through it a little quick. Or do you guys have any questions at all? So I'd love to, yeah? I can't hear you, honey. My favorite lens is my 105, my macro. Who shoots with that lens? That lens is so versatile. You can use that lens for ring shots, detail shots, portraits. So if you have just your bride or just your groom or whoever you're shooting, the child, the 105 is an awesome portrait lens. People don't use that lens the most. My second would be my 85. Yeah. Any? Yeah. You're official, you have a mic.
Hello?
Hi.
If you had to do it again, what would you do differently?
For my business, I would ask questions. I would second shoot. I would third shoot. I would assist. I would hire a mentor. I got into weddings. I just dove in. I didn't know what I was doing. I was a teacher, and I literally messed up for a good 2 years. I'm not even lying. You can laugh at that all you want. I wasted a lot of money. I bought the wrong equipment, but I would hire somebody who could lead me in the right direction. You guys are very lucky now if you're just starting out because you have Facebook groups, you have Instagram, you have all types of webinar, you have TED Talks, you have all these things where you can learn. I didn't have that a decade ago when I started, but I would definitely get a mentor second or third shoot. Awesome. Does anyone else have any questions? Oh, yep. Can you give them a mic?
Do you prefer off-camera lighting, or do you mostly use natural light?
I actually love both. I don't love one over the other. If I'm at a reception or I'm in a dark church, it's off-camera, 2. 1 on camera. If I'm outside, I don't use any flash at all. It's just all natural light. But I don't like one over the other because I've learned to work my flash manually and bump up the exposure, it almost looks like sun, if that makes sense to you. Yeah. You have another question? Yeah. Perfect.
What's your biggest marketing tip?
What's my biggest marketing tip? Oh my gosh. You guys, if you're not using your social media, use it. I book weddings from Instagram every single day, $6,000 or more. What does Instagram cost us? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So if you're not using your Instagram, if you go on my Instagram right now, I have almost 2,000 wedding photos posted. I post every single day, breakfast, lunch, dinner, late night when my boyfriend is bothering me. I post every single day, consistently. If you are not using your social media, use it. Yeah.
Do you use film in your wedding business?
I do. I shoot hybrid. Hybrid, which means I shoot with a film body and then a digital body. My film body is a Nikon F100 35 millimeter. So, and I've gotten to the point where I'm able to be consistent with my light with both, but that took me about 2 years. Awesome. But again, guys, I'm so sorry that I was on the other side and I couldn't see things, so I'm glad that I changed over. Does anybody else have any questions? No?